shift had barely started when Sam unlocked the door to the small, isolated gas station on Highway 47. It was just past midnight, and the air outside was bitterly cold. Kind of cold that clung to your skin and made you wish you were anywhere else. The station's flickering neon sign buzzed like an insect, casting pale blue light across the empty parking lot. Inside, the smell of old coffee and cleaning chemicals mixed in the air. The hum of the fluorescent lights overhead was constant, like a low, monotonous chant. Sam poured himself a cup of stale coffee, wincing at the bitter taste, and settled behind the counter. This was his first night shift. The manager had been casual about it earlier that day. "You'll be fine. 3 customers, maybe for all night. Keep the place tidy, keep the register balanced, and lock up at 6. But it was Mike, one of the day clerks, who pulled him aside before leaving. "If you hear knocking on the back door," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "don't open it, no matter what, even if they're begging you to." Sam had laughed. Seriously? Mike didn't laugh, just looked at him for a long moment, then walked out without another word. By 12:45 a.m., Sam had almost forgotten the warning. He was scrolling through his phone when a flicker of movement outside caught his eye. An old red sedan rolled up to pump number 3. Its paint was dull and chipped. Its windshield was clouded with dust. Sam leaned forward to get a better look and froze. The car was empty. Before he could think too much about it, the station's lights flickered violently once, twice, and then went out entirely, plunging him into blackness. The hum of the lights stopped, and the only sound was his own breathing. 3 seconds passed. 4. Then the lights came back. The car was gone. Sam told himself it was nothing. Maybe the car had rolled forward and out of sight. He poured another cup of coffee, trying to shake the unease creeping over him. That's when he heard its slow, deliberate knocking from the back door. He froze. The sound came again, louder this time, followed by a faint dragging sound, like fingernails scraping against metal. The noise made his teeth ache. He thought about Mike's warning. Maybe it was a prank. Maybe one of the guys from the day shift had decided to scare him. He grabbed the flashlight from under the counter and started toward the back hallway. The closer he got, the colder the air felt, as if the temperature was dropping with each step. He stopped at the metal door and pressed his eye to the peephole. A man stood there. He was impossibly tall, his head tilted so far to the side it looked broken. His grin was wide and unnatural, stretching his cheeks in ways that skin shouldn't stretch. His eyes were pure black, deep voids that reflected nothing. Sam stumbled back, his heartbeat thundering in his ears. He ran to the counter and grabbed the landline phone, dialing 911. The line clicked once. Then instead of a dispatcher's voice, he heard faint whispering. The words were too soft to make out, but the tone was urgent pleading, almost desperate. Under the whispers came the sound of slow, heavy breathing. "Hello," Sam's voice shook. "Who is this?" The breathing stopped. A distorted voice, low and unnatural, said, greater than he's already inside. Sam dropped the phone. The automatic glass doors at the front slid open with a cheerful ding. Sam turned sharply. No one was there, but then shadows moved past the windows. Quick, darting shapes that disappeared when he tried to focus on them. The door stayed open. The store was silent except for the faint sound of breathing behind him. Sam turned. The tall man was standing inside the store now, closer than before. His grin was wider, stretching unnaturally toward his ears. Behind him, in the reflection of the glass doors, dozens of shadowy figures stood in the parking lot, all smiling, all watching. The lights went out. Yusuf was tired. After months of searching, this night shift job at the old gas station seemed like his only option. The pay was low, the place was isolated, and the locals told stories about strange happenings after dark. But desperate times called for desperate measures. As he pulled up to the station, the setting sun cast long shadows over the cracked pavement. The flickering neon sign above the pumps hummed weakly, its light struggling to cut through the approaching darkness. Yusuf grabbed his bag and stepped inside. The station smelled of stale coffee and old oil. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as he flipped the switch to illuminate the convenience store. He noticed dust settled thick on the shelves and the faint outline of spider webs in the corners. Yusuf settled behind the counter, switched on the bank of security monitors, and took a sip from his thermos. The screen showed empty pumps and silent streets, but as the clock edged toward midnight, something felt off, an unshakable weight pressing down on the quiet. Suddenly, on one of the monitors, a shadow flickered near pump number 3. Yusuf blinked, but the screen was clear again. Maybe it was a trick of the light, he told himself. Still, a chill ran down his spine. As the minutes passed, the shadows outside seemed to grow longer, twisting unnaturally. Yusuf caught movement out of the corner of his eye, a figure standing still. Just beyond the street lamp, his weak glow. He blinked again. The figure was gone. His phone buzzed, but when he glanced at the screen, it showed only static. The station's old radio crackled to life with faint whispers, too low to make out, yet unmistakably human. Yusuf shivered and turned back to the monitors, unaware that the longest and darkest night of his life was just beginning. Yusuf tried to focus on the security cameras, but the unease in his chest only grew stronger. The flickering shadow on the screen had returned, darting erratically near pump number 3, then vanishing into the darkness. He leaned closer, eyes straining to catch any sign of movement. The wind outside howled softly, rattling the station's windows. Yusuf wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, hoping that warmth would steady his nerves. Suddenly, a low static crackle came from the radio. The whispers were clearer now, like fragmented voices calling out in a language Yusuf couldn't understand. His heart raced. He stood up and walked over to the door, staring out into the blackness of the parking lot. The only light came from a flickering street lamp swaying in the wind. Then, from the corner of his eye, he saw it, a fleeting shape, tall and dark, slipping behind the old gas pump. Yusuf's breath caught. He grabbed the flashlight from under the counter and stepped outside cautiously. The cold night air hit him like a wave, and every step he took echoed unnaturally in the stillness. He circled around the pumps, shining the beam into every shadow, but found nothing. As he turned back toward the station, the door slammed shut with a loud bang. Yusuf's heart hammered in his chest. He rushed to the door and yanked it open. The cold air rushed inside, carrying with it the scent of damp earth and something metallic, like blood. Back inside, he checked the monitors again. The shadow was gone, but on one screen he noticed something odd. Faint scratches appeared on the glass of the pump nearest to the shadow. As last location, as if something had tried to claw its way in. Yusuf's phone buzzed suddenly, making him jump. The screen was blank except for a message typed in shaky letters. Leave before midnight. Yusuf's hands trembled as he reread the message on his phone. Leave before midnight. But it was already close to that time. His mind raced. Was this a prank, or something far more sinister? Suddenly, a soft knocking echoed from the back door. It was slow, deliberate, and steady, like someone desperate to get in. Yusuf froze. The back door was old and heavy, rarely used. Who could be out there at this hour? He grabbed his flashlight, heart pounding, and crept toward the door. The knocking continued, echoing through the empty station. He glanced through the frosted glass window, but saw nothing but swirling fog and shadows. Summoning courage, Yusuf opened the door a crack. The cold night air rushed in, carrying with it a faint whisper that seemed to come from nowhere and everywhere at once. The knocking stopped. He stepped outside, shining his flashlight across the deserted parking lot. A scrap of paper fluttered at his feet. Picking it up, Yusuf read another chilling note. You can't leave once the clock strikes 12. A cold shiver ran down his spine. He backed inside, locking the door behind him. But deep inside, he knew this night was far from over. Minutes ticked by slowly. Yusuf tried to focus on his tasks, but the unease in his stomach twisted tighter. Then, without warning, the lights flickered violently and went out. Darkness swallowed the station whole. He fumbled for his phone to use its flashlight, but it was dead. No signal, no power. He rushed to the emergency generator, pulling the lever with all his strength, but it refused to start. In the pitch black, the silence was suffocating. Suddenly, the emergency exit door creaked open on its own. A cold breeze swept in, carrying with it a faint, almost inaudible chant. Yusuf's breath quickened as he spun around, but no one was there. Then his eyes adjusted to the dark. and he saw the outlines of shadowy figures standing just outside the glass door, silent, unmoving, watching. The radio crackled again, this time louder. A voice whispered, "You shouldn't have come here." Yusuf's phone suddenly rang, piercing the heavy silence. Hands shaking, he answered. "Leave now," a voice hissed on the other end, breathy and distorted, "or you'll never leave." Call ended abruptly. His skin crawled as the temperature dropped rapidly. The shadows outside seemed to stretch closer, and a low murmur filled the air, a chorus of whispered warnings. He grabbed his coat and keys, desperate to escape, but when he tried to start his car, the engine sputtered and died. Looking up, he saw a massive, dark silhouette blocking the street lights. It didn't move, but seemed to grow, an impossible shape defying the night. Yusuf felt his legs freeze, trapped by invisible chains of fear. Forced back inside, Yusuf remembered a storage room he'd seen earlier, locked, dusty, and avoided by previous employees. He searched frantically and found a rusty key hanging on a nail behind the counter. Heart pounding, he unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room was cramped and filled with old equipment, broken signs, and cobweb-covered crates. Strange symbols were etched into the walls, circles, triangles, and incomprehensible markings. In the center was a chalk circle, roughly drawn but unmistakably a protective symbol. Suddenly, the faint sound of chanting echoed through the walls. Yusuf's flashlight flickered wildly, and he felt a cold presence brush past him. He backed toward the door only to find it slammed shut. Trapped, Yusuf pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. The whispers grew louder, overlapping into a terrifying cacophony. Shadows inside the room twisted and writhed like living creatures. The air grew thick with cold and fear. Suddenly, a cold hand grasped his shoulder. He spun around, but no one was there. The chanting exploded into a blood-curdling scream. Yusuf's vision blurred and he collapsed, unable to move. When he came to, the door was open and the room was empty. Outside, the first light of dawn peeked over the horizon. The morning shift arrived to find the station eerily silent. Yusuf was gone. His coffee cup lay half full on the counter, his phone dead and abandoned. Security footage showed him pacing nervously for hours. Then a sudden burst of static, and after that, nothing. Rumors spread in town about the night watchman who vanished without a trace. Locals said the station was cursed, haunted by restless spirits and shadows that preyed on anyone who stayed too late. To this day, passers-by swear they hear whispers in the wind and see flickers of shadow lurking just beyond the pumps. No one dares to work the night shift at that station anymore. Days passed, but Yusuf never returned. Rumors in the village grew darker. Some said they heard his voice whispering through the wind near the station at night, calling for help. Others claimed to see fleeting shadows moving just beyond the pump lights. One night, a group of curious teenagers dared to enter the station. As they crossed the threshold, the air grew cold and thick. Their flashlights flickered and strange symbols on the walls seemed to glow faintly. Suddenly, a chilling scream echoed through the empty store, sending them fleeing into the darkness. The station remained abandoned ever since, an ominous reminder of what happens when you stay too long. In the dead of night, if you ever find yourself driving past an old, lonely gas station at midnight, remember Yusuf's story. Some places are better left alone. The shadows in the dark are not always empty. Thank you for listening to this story. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more chilling tales. Your support means a lot and keeps the lights on in this haunted station. Stay safe and remember, sometimes the night hides more than just darkness.